On February 11th, 2017, the FV Destination, a seasoned crabbing vessel operating in the harsh waters of the Bering Sea, set out for another day of fishing, with its experienced crew ready for the challenges ahead. Tragically, neither the ship nor her 6 crew members would return to port. I've always had enormous respect for the fishermen of the Bering Sea. It's a merciless environment, and that is well known. Yet, year after year, these crews brave the treacherous waters. Let there be no mistake, the income generated by the fishing industry in these regions is substantial, which raises an important question. Are the sailors truly aware of the risks they face, or are they perhaps blinded by the potential gains? Is there something about the danger itself that drives them to this life? With these questions in mind, today we'll focus on the destination, its crew, and the challenges they encountered on their final voyage. By examining the official reports, we can gain a clearer understanding of the circumstances surrounding this tragedy and the lessons that followed. Disclaimer: the information presented in this video is primarily based on publicly available data from the National Transportation Safety Board and the United States Coast Guard. However, neither the NTSB, the USCG, nor any related government entities endorse, approve, or support the content of this video, including any analysis, interpretations, opinions, or conclusions expressed. All commentary and conclusions are my own and should not be construed as official statements from any of these organizations. The destination was originally built in 1981 under the name Compass Rose at J&S Marine Services in Texas. Constructed with a house-forward structure and 3 holds, the vessel was designed for commercial fishing operations. At its inception, the destination measured 81.8 feet in length with a gross tonnage of 198, making it a typical size for its class of fishing vessels. The original plans for the Compass Rose included a crab pot loading table, indicating the vessel could operate with up to 95 pots arranged in 3 tiers, with each pot measuring 6.5 by 6.5 feet and weighing 700 pounds. However, its service life would be marked by significant modifications aimed at expanding its capabilities. In 1985, the vessel was purchased by a new owner and renamed Destination. In 1992, the Destination underwent a major transformation at Tim All's Shipbuilding in Seattle, where its length was increased to 98.6 feet and its beam widened to 32.2 feet. These modifications were intended to improve the vessel's ability to carry larger loads for the demanding crab fisheries of the Bering Sea. Additionally, the wheelhouse was raised by about 3 feet to enhance visibility and working conditions on deck. The vessel's gross tonnage was recalculated at 196, reflecting these changes. However, despite the scale of these alterations, no formal construction or arrangement plans were created or maintained, leaving a gap in the documentation of the vessel's modifications. By 1993, stability instructions were issued based on an inclining test to reflect the vessel's modifications. These instructions provided crucial guidelines on loading examples, tank capacities, and maintaining stability under various conditions, in compliance with federal regulations under 46 CFR 28. However, they did not account for future changes, such as the use of heavier crab pots. Initially, the Destination operated with 6.5 by 6.5 foot pots, weighing about 700 pounds, as reported by the captain during the stability test, though this weight was not verified. The stability report did not clearly specify the dimensions or precise weights of the pots, but it did set a 750-pound limit for lifting operations under heavy conditions. Over time, the vessel began using larger 7 by 7 foot pots, each weighing up to 870 pounds when fully loaded with lines and buoys, which became essential for efficient harvesting. The vessel's owner maintained a routine of dry docking every 2 years to address maintenance needs. In 2012, the Destination sustained hull damage during the crabbing season and underwent a comprehensive overhaul at Pacific Fishermen Incorporated in Seattle. During this time, a bulbous bow was installed to reduce pitching and improve fuel efficiency. The installation of the bulbous bow was designed to be filled with water for trim and handling adjustments, enhancing the vessel's stability in challenging sea conditions. The owner requested a stability assessment from a naval architect, who confirmed in January 2013 that the vessel was safe for crab fishing in the Bering Sea. The stability assessment, which referenced the 1993 stability instructions, noted only a minor reduction in the vessel's metacentric height by about 2 inches. However, the assessment was limited to the bulbous bow and hull repairs, excluding other potential weight changes, such as the larger crab pots. The owner assumed no further impact on stability. In addition to these structural repairs, the vessel's steering system underwent numerous overhauls between 2011 and 2016 due to recurring issues with hydraulic contamination. Crew members reported steering problems, including pumps sticking, which required multiple repairs, culminating in a complete teardown and rebuild of the system in 2016. In June 2016, a surveyor from Waypoint Marine Surveyors conducted a valuation and survey of condition while the destination was moored at Marine Fluid Systems in Seattle, Washington. The report found the vessel to be in good condition, with no discrepancies noted that would affect its seaworthiness. However, the surveyor explicitly stated that stability evaluations were outside their expertise, and no formal assessment of the vessel's stability was conducted during this inspection. The destination was compliant with federal regulations under 46 CFR Part 28 regarding life-saving and communication equipment. For survival, the vessel was equipped with an 8-person inflatable life raft, 6 immersion suits, 2 life rings, and an emergency position indicating radio beacon APERB, with an expiration date for its hydrostatic release and battery set for May 2021. The APERB was designed to automatically transmit a distress signal if the vessel were to sink. For communications, the vessel carried VHF-FM radio telephones, single sideband radios, a satellite phone, and an automatic identification system. The captain of the destination was known for his commitment to safety. He completed a safety course with the Alaska Marine Safety Education Association in 2005, fulfilling federal requirements for drills and safety instruction under 46 CFR 28.270. This allowed him to serve as a certified fishing vessel drill conductor. The captain conducted monthly safety drills, held pre-season safety meetings, and addressed scenarios like flooding and man-overboard situations. Although the captain's Coast Guard Merchant Mariner credential expired in 2015, this had no impact on the legality of the vessel's operation, as vessels under 200 gross tonnage are exempt from certain licensing requirements. One other deckhand held a valid Coast Guard credential, but the rest of the crew did not. Life aboard the destination was grueling, especially at the start of crabbing season. There was no regulatory requirement for a formal work rest schedule, as fishing vessels like the destination were exempt from watch and working hour standards under 46 CFR 15 and 46 USC 8304. Crew members often worked long, exhausting shifts, with some reporting workdays lasting between 24 to 48 hours during peak operations. A typical work schedule could involve 20 hours of labor followed by just 4 hours of rest. During transit, crew members stood navigational watch on the bridge, overseeing the vessel's autopilot and monitoring engine room conditions through closed-circuit video cameras. To prevent the bridge crew from falling asleep, an alarm system was in place, requiring manual resetting every 10 minutes. Additionally, engine room checks were conducted regularly, with special attention paid to greasing shaft bearings every 6 hours and ensuring that critical equipment, such as the hydraulic system, was functioning correctly. The destination's final voyage in early 2017 began with a 27-day cod fishing trip near False Pass and Sanac Island, Alaska, starting on January 8th. The vessel's crew, including the captain and 5 deckhands, with one also serving as the engineer, worked tirelessly to manage the 200 pots. The cod season was grueling, and by February 3rd, the crew was exhausted, bruised, and sore from the long hours of work. After returning to Sand Point, Alaska, on February 4th, the crew began preparing for the next phase of their journey, opilio crab, often referred to as snow crab, fishing in the Bering Sea. Over the next few days, they reconfigured 190 of their 200 pots from cod gear to opilio crab gear and loaded 15,228 gallons of diesel fuel. The destination was part of a cooperative fishing group that had been allocated 914,118 pounds of crab for the 2016-17 season. The destination share was 191,000 pounds, nearly half of which was to be delivered to Trident Seafoods on St. Paul Island. The pressure was on, as the facility at St. Paul was set to close between February 20th and 25th, meaning the vessel had to meet its quota quickly to stay on schedule. On February 8th, the destination departed Sandpoint at 9:53 a.m., heading for King Cove, Alaska, where they loaded 3,080 pounds of bait at Peter Pan Seafoods and completed an Alaska Department of Fish and Game inspection. This inspection certified that the vessel was carrying 200 pots and prepared for crab fishing. After leaving King Cove at 10 p.m., the destination arrived in Dutch Harbor the next day, February 9th, at 6:15 p.m. The vessel moored at the Clusterboer cold storage facility, where the crew loaded an additional 4 pallets of bait, amounting to 7,060 pounds. This bait was stacked amidships on top of the crab pots, leaving little room on deck. The vessel's freezer was likely filled to capacity, so any excess bait was stored on the main deck, in totes, or on pallets. A Coast Guard officer offered the captain the opportunity to complete a voluntary stability and safety compliance check during the stop at Dutch Harbor. The captain declined, explaining that he had already completed an SSC 4 months earlier and was currently carrying fewer pots than at that time. The Coast Guard officer did not press the issue, though no record of the October SSC existed. After loading bait at Clusterboer, the destination moved to a nearby Trident Seafoods facility around 7 p.m. While moored, the crew addressed maintenance issues, including repairing a leak in the main engine's exhaust and working on the vessel's stuffing box, which had been leaking throughout the cod season. The stuffing box leak had required the engineer to pump water out of the engine room bilge every few hours, a task that had put extra strain on the crew. Before departing Dutch Harbor, the captain and crew took a brief break to have dinner at a nearby restaurant with 2 former crew members who were in town. The mood was somber, as the former crew members noted that the current crew appeared pretty beat down after the exhausting cod season. At 11:15 p.m. on February 9th, the destination departed Dutch Harbor, heading towards St. Paul Island. The crew planned to offload 5 to 6 pallets of bait at the Trident Seafoods facility in St. Paul before heading out to the crab grounds. As the destination made its way towards St. Paul, the captain maintained communication with the captain of the Aleutian Lady, a vessel from the same fishing cooperative. They discussed strategy, including the possibility of sharing quotas between vessels to ensure that they met the cooperative's target. There was a general concern among the fleet about the availability of bait on St. Paul Island, so both vessels were carrying extra bait to compensate. However, as the vessel progressed towards St. Paul Island, it encountered increasingly severe weather conditions. The National Weather Service had issued warnings of heavy freezing spray and northeasterly winds ranging from 25 to 35 knots, which were expected to create seas of 7 to 13 feet. These conditions would increase the risk of ice accumulation on the vessel, which could affect its stability, especially with a heavy load of crab pots and gear on deck. On February 10th, 2 significant slowdowns were recorded on the destination's AIS data. The first, lasting 10 minutes, occurred at 1:13 p.m., and the second, lasting 40 minutes, took place later that evening, from 10:10 p.m. to 10:50 p.m. Both events showed the vessel adjusting its course and speed, likely in response to the rough seas and heavy freezing spray. By the morning of February 11th, at approximately 5 a.m., the destination was transiting near the southwestern side of St. George Island. The vessel was making good speed, increasing from 7.8 to 9 knots, and was positioned between 1.5 and 3.5 nautical miles from the island's coast. The weather had worsened significantly, with winds at 23 knots and seas reaching 8.4 feet, coming from the northeast at nearly a right angle to the vessel's starboard side. At 5:55 a.m., the destination passed Dalno Point, the northwestern tip of St. George Island, and made a course adjustment to 340 degrees, continuing its voyage towards St. Paul Island. The worsening weather, coupled with the vessel's condition and load, created a perilous situation as it continued through the hazardous seas of the Bering Sea. At 6:10 a.m., just after leaving the protection of the lee of St. George Island, the destination began experiencing significant issues. Over the course of 3 minutes, the vessel's heading suddenly shifted 256 degrees to starboard, while its speed dropped below 2 knots. It is believed that the destination capsized during this time. By 6:13 a.m., the destination's emergency position indicating radio beacon, APERB, transmitted its initial satellite distress alert. A minute later, at 6:14 a.m., the vessel's automatic identification system stopped transmitting, recording a final heading of 270 degrees and a speed of 1.8 knots. At 6:15 a.m., the Coast Guard's 17th District Command Center in Juneau, Alaska, received the distress signal from the destination's APERB, indicating a position about 2.7 miles west of Dalno Point. Despite multiple attempts to contact the destination via VHF and HF radio and satellite communication systems, no response was received. By 6:34 a.m., the Coast Guard Search and Rescue SAR mission coordinator was briefed, and an HC-130 aircraft and an MH-60 helicopter were requested for deployment. The aircraft was stationed in Kodiak, about 570 miles away, while the helicopter was positioned in Cold Bay, approximately 255 miles from the destination's last known location. At 7:45 a.m., the HC-130 aircraft from Coast Guard Air Station Kodiak launched, beginning its 2.5-hour flight to the search area. Shortly after, at 8:09 a.m., an MH-60 helicopter from Kodiak attempted to take off to escort the Cold Bay helicopter but was forced to return for de-icing due to ice buildup on the engine inlets. By 8:40 a.m., after de-icing, the MH-60 from Kodiak successfully launched. At 9:30 a.m., the Silver Spray, a Good Samaritan fishing vessel, arrived at the scene, discovering buoys and an oil sheen about 4.5 miles from the destination's last known AIS position. By 9:50 a.m., the Bering Rose, another Good Samaritan vessel, arrived but found no sign of the destination. It proceeded toward the vessel's last known APERB position. By 11:40 a.m., the Silver Spray recovered a life ring bearing the name FV destination. At 12 p.m., the MH-60 helicopter from Cold Bay arrived at the destination's last known location and spotted the vessel's APERB about 0.4 miles off St. George Island. The helicopter directed the Silver Spray to recover the APERB, which they did at 12:25 p.m. On February 12th at 10 a.m., the Coast Guard cutter Morgenthau arrived from Dutch Harbor to assist in the search efforts. Unfortunately, after searching over 5,731 square miles for more than 3 days, the Coast Guard suspended search efforts on February 14th at 5 p.m., concluding there was no further chance of survival for the 6 crew members. This decision was based on the elapsed time exceeding the predicted survival limit of 10.65 hours for crew members in survival suits. Neither the crew nor the vessel's life raft was ever located. In July 2017, months after the accident, NOAA's Fairweather used side-scan sonar to search the seafloor and located the destination lying on its port side, 256 feet below the surface, about 7 miles north of Dalno Point. A 330-foot scour line marked where the vessel had scraped the ocean floor as it sank. The Coast Guard attempted to inspect the wreck with a remotely operated vehicle, but strong underwater currents hampered the operation, allowing only a few images to be captured. The sinking of the destination was the result of multiple factors that converged into severe conditions of the Bering Sea. The primary contributors to the vessel's loss included ice accumulation, stability issues, and decisions made by the captain under commercial pressure. Prolonged exposure to freezing spray caused a significant buildup of ice, particularly on the crab pots, which had both interior and exterior surfaces for ice to collect. This accumulation raised the vessel's center of gravity and decreased its righting arm, reducing its ability to return upright after tilting and making the ship vulnerable to capsizing. The destination experienced conditions with up to 24 inches of ice accumulation in some areas. Simulations conducted by experts estimated that the vessel could have accumulated up to 108 long tons of ice, which is equivalent to the weight of 305 additional crab pots. This ice buildup significantly exceeded the amount accounted for in the vessel's stability instructions. The destination departed Dutch Harbor with 200 crab pots, each weighing 840 pounds, but the vessel's stability instructions were based on pots weighing only 700 pounds. This discrepancy added 11,760 pounds of weight above what was anticipated. Furthermore, the ship had undergone modifications, including the installation of a bulbous bow and a new bulwark at the bow, which were not properly factored into its stability assessments. A U.S. Coast Guard analysis showed that these modifications reduced the vessel's overall stability, as 8 out of 10 loading conditions did not meet the required intact stability criteria. The combined effect of the added weight, ice accumulation, and structural changes left the destination in a precarious condition. The captain felt pressure to meet a delivery deadline in St. Paul, Alaska, despite having the ability to delay the voyage. This pressure likely stemmed from the desire to maximize earnings and establish a catch history for future quota allocations. Instead of waiting for safer weather conditions or giving the crew time to rest, the captain opted to sail with a fatigued crew and an overloaded vessel. The destination had just completed an intense cod fishing season, where the crew worked over 20 hours a day, leading to exhaustion. The captain's loading practices deviated from established safety guidelines. He placed additional gear, including bait weighing 7,060 pounds, on top of the crab pots, which further raised the vessel's center of gravity and made it more susceptible to capsizing. The vessel's stability instructions explicitly warned against this practice, stating that cargo should not be loaded higher than the crab pots themselves. These actions increased the vessel's instability, which combined with the severe icing conditions proved catastrophic. No mayday calls were made, and no lifeboats or immersion suits were deployed, indicating that the capsizing happened too rapidly for the crew to respond. The U.S. Coast Guard was not able to reach the last known position of the destination until hours after the vessel had sunk, and by then, the cold waters of the Bering Sea had taken their toll. The crew's chances of survival in the frigid water, even if they had managed to abandon ship, were slim due to cold shock and incapacitation, which can cause death within 5 to 30 minutes in such conditions. The NTSB concluded that the probable cause of the destination's capsizing and sinking was the captain's decision to continue the voyage during heavy freezing spray conditions. The captain failed to ensure that the vessel had a sufficient margin of stability to withstand ice accumulation or take mitigating actions to reduce or limit the effects of the icing. The U.S. Coast Guard provided a detailed breakdown of the factors contributing to the sinking. It identified several causes, starting with the decision to turn the destination into hazardous waters after passing the sheltered side of St. George Island. This action led to a loss of maneuverability, which left the vessel exposed to waves that swamped the deck. The Coast Guard highlighted several contributing factors, including the owner's failure to select a qualified individual to evaluate the vessel's stability and provide the captain with updated stability information. The captain, relying on outdated information, made errors in loading, placing bait and a sorting table on top of crab pots, which affected the vessel's center of gravity. The vessel exceeded its stability criteria upon departure, and the captain's urgency to meet delivery deadlines compounded the issues. Furthermore, the crew was fatigued and unprepared to manage and remove ice accumulations as the vessel sailed through freezing spray conditions. Additional contributing factors to the sinking included the accumulation of water on deck due to limited and non-compliant freeing ports, as well as the captain's failure to close the number 3 hold access hatch, which allowed seawater to flood the inner compartments. External forces such as the wind and waves further reduced the vessel's stability, leading to a catastrophic loss of buoyancy. The vessel quickly capsized, giving the crew little to no time to take emergency action. The absence of a mayday call, failure to don survival suits, and inability to deploy the life raft further contributed to the loss of life. The extreme cold and the crew's limited functional survival time meant they were incapacitated before any assistance could arrive. In terms of violations, the Coast Guard did not find evidence of misconduct or criminal law violations by any credentialed mariners or its own members. However, it cited the vessel's owner for failing to comply with stability requirements under 46 CFR 28, subpart E. The owner neglected to hire a qualified individual to conduct stability tests after modifications were made to the vessel, such as the installation of the bulbous bow, new bow bulwark, and heavier crab pots. These alterations constituted a substantial change in the vessel's stability, yet no steps were taken to address them. As part of the recommendations, the Coast Guard suggested several safety measures to prevent similar incidents. These include conducting outreach and education efforts to ensure vessel owners and captains are aware of stability regulations and performing audits of stability instruction compliance, especially in the Bering Sea and Aleutian Islands crabbing fleet. The Coast Guard also recommended direct verification of crab pot weights during safety exams to ensure they align with the stability instructions, which should be amended to reflect any weight changes. Additional regulations were proposed to improve stability instructions, mandate stability training for vessel owners and captains, and require vessel owners to report any modifications to the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard emphasized the importance of preparing for icing conditions, recommending that stability instructions include the assumed weight and thickness of ice accumulation. Captains should be advised to delay departure or seek sheltered waters when icing could compromise vessel stability. To address the issue of crew fatigue, the Coast Guard recommended that vessel owners implement shipboard policies to regulate work hours and rest periods, following principles from the Coast Guard's Crew Endurance Management System, CMS. This would help prevent fatigue-related accidents and improve crew readiness for emergencies. The Coast Guard also proposed administrative actions, such as rescinding the third-party surveyor's certification who conducted the last safety exam on the destination and initiating civil penalties against the vessel's owner for failing to provide accurate stability instructions. Finally, the Coast Guard recommended recognizing the efforts of the Bering Rose and Silver Spray crews for their involvement in the search and rescue operations. The loss of the destination and its 6 crew members is a somber reminder of the harsh realities faced by those who work at sea. These men were more than just crew members. They were sons, fathers, brothers, and friends, each leaving behind grieving families and devastated communities. Their bravery and dedication in the treacherous waters of the Bering Sea were a testament to the spirit of those who risk their lives to provide for their loved ones. This tragedy highlights the inherent dangers of maritime work, especially in extreme environments like the Bering Sea. It underscores the importance of up-to-date stability assessments, proper loading procedures, and the need to heed warnings about hazardous weather conditions. The investigations by the National Transportation Safety Board and the U.S. Coast Guard have brought to light several areas where improvements are necessary to ensure that such a catastrophe never happens again. The memory of the destination's crew must serve as a lasting reminder of the importance of safety in the maritime industry. Vessel owners, captains, and crew members must prioritize the stability and seaworthiness of their ships, adhering to the lessons learned from this tragic event. By doing so, we can help safeguard the lives of those who continue to brave the unforgiving waters in pursuit of their livelihood. The legacy of these 6 men and the lessons from their loss will endure, pushing the industry to adopt better safety practices, ensuring that their sacrifice is not forgotten and that future seafarers can navigate safer waters.